Hi friends, welcome to Active Self-Protection Extra. Your host John Correa with Terry Johnson, the Vice President of Firearms Legal Protection. I'm sorry, Executive Vice President.
It's just a title.
Even better, Executive. And today I want to talk to you about, again, the 14-year-old from Pennsylvania who drew a gun and shot a guy in the face who was trying to rob the store. Today we're going to talk about the legal aspects of the justification of that young man's actions. To win the fight after the fight, you need help. After a use of force, I trust Firearms Legal Protection to help me win the fight for the rest of my life. From their 24/7 attorney-answered hotline to coverage for the use of all legal tools, Firearms Legal Protection has you covered. Get a discount by signing up at the link below. So last week we talked about the idea that this 14-year-old kid is carrying a gun for this purpose. Now, under Pennsylvania law, he was involved in lawful activities under the supervision of his parent.
Absolutely.
And ipso facto, that is legal in Pennsylvania law.
Yes.
Okay, cool. But I know when I watched it the first time, I was like, wait, what? And you were kind of the same.
Yes. It wasn't the self-defense, but it was how self-defense was used, if that makes any sense.
Oh, you're going to have to unpack that.
Sure. Was this self-defense against mom? I'm not sure. I know it was a robbery. Now again, this is going to depend upon the state that you're in, okay? So, first of all, what did the other person have? The
perp didn't have any weapons that they saw in the video.
Right. So there's no weapons. He's reaching for what appeared to be money out of a till. And
but fighting mom for that money.
Yeah, well, and again, when we say fighting, he's not punching mom. He's fighting mom.
With
yes,
mom, yeah.
They're fighting over the money. And the 14-year-old comes up and shoots him not once but twice in the face.
I think only once. It's kind of hard to see on the video, but shoots him in the face enough to immediately incapacitate him.
Yeah, and he lays there. So my question becomes at that point, was deadly force necessary? Was that reasonable at that point? Could he have pulled his gun out and said, hey, stop, I'll shoot? Could he have... I don't know what else he could have done. Could mom have even taken a step back at that point? There's so many things we can second guess here. And again, emotionally, we want to say, yeah, the bad guy got his. That's what you get for robbing my store. However...
I got no love lost for the moron who paid with a bullet in the face for robbing somebody. Don't rob people, you won't get shot. I mean...
Bingo.
No love lost for that moron.
But the question becomes from a justification standpoint, was that reasonable under the circumstances? And I, again, almost point blank range.
So here's my interesting part. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Again, as a thing for you guys, we don't script this stuff. We sit and have a discussion about it, okay? And you get invited to the discussion. Because this, to me, feels like the margin between can I shoot someone and must I shoot someone. And now, if I'm always on the other side of must I, no, that guy threatened my mom with a gun. If I didn't shoot him, he was going to shoot my mom. I had to shoot him. Now we're on the side of must, and we probably are in no big deal whatsoever.
Correct.
But we're asking that in the midst, was it the only option available to me to shoot that guy in the face? Well, I think reasonably from an objective standard, you just brought up a couple things you're like, I'm not so sure about that. But so now we're living in this gray area between must I and can I, and would it be considered reasonable? Because we say you don't have to be perfect, you don't have to make perfect judgments, you have to make reasonable judgments.
Exactly.
Given the totality of the circumstances you were under in the moment. So here's an interesting thing. Do you think that it's possible that he reasonably thought that guy was a risk of death or great bodily harm to his mom in the moment?
Well, here becomes the question, does a 14-year-old have that type of capacity? Okay.
Can he really articulate that?
And if you look at it, if a guy comes in and you take a 14-year-old boy, he wants to be the protector of his mom, like we all were at that age, right? And this guy comes in and he starts doing something to mom. Is this something that could cause death to mom? Probably not.
Probably not.
Great bodily injury? Probably not.
Maybe. I mean, it's a big, strong dude reaching across. Kind of, did he articulate? Did he feel like Well, I think we watch on the video, it sure looks like he's grabbing at the till. Did he perceive that as grabbing at mom and trying to hurt mom?
That's a good question, but again, how do we judge this? When you use a third-person self-defense, when you have to step in their shoes.
Right.
And again, if we have that emotional factor, that, oh my God, this guy's doing something to my mom, that's something different than, oh my God, something is actually happening to my mom.
Right.
And I don't know that, listen, I'm not saying he was necessarily wrong.
Right.
But I am saying, as I look at it, I'm not saying he was necessarily right either.
So this, to me, again, you're riding this spot between can I and must I. And again, let me say, I'm not sad for the moron who got shot. I mean, he put the quarter in the jukebox, so he gets to listen to the song, right? But at the same time, that 14-year-old now, and mom too, is looking at how many nights of sleeplessness until they get something from the district attorney that says we're not going to press charges against you. And maybe they do decide. Maybe the prosecutor goes, I'm not going to get you for attempted murder here or anything like that, but you are going to plead guilty to something because there's some stink on this one.
Yeah, you had a gun, and again, here's the other part of that, I would want to know what kind of training this 14-year-old has had. Has mom or dad or someone taking this kid to the range? Is this the first time the kid's ever held a gun? And, in retrospect, looking at it, if I'm not mistaken, and, you can go back to the video and look at it, the kid didn't hold the gun like this, I believe.
One hand on the gun?
One hand on the gun. I think he actually turned his wrist.
I'm not positive about that, but he just stuck it right out there with one hand, pressed the trigger, put a bullet in that guy's face.
Yeah.
Didn't kill him either. Interesting.
Yeah, that was the other part. So at this point, I guess, like I said, I'm not saying he's right, I'm not saying he's wrong, but he's somewhere in the middle, and it can go either way because, again, I don't know that mom was in a position of imminent death or great bodily harm.
So once again, here's what we see. Now, I don't know what the district attorney is going to end up doing. This stuff goes on behind closed doors.
Correct.
We aren't invited to the process. Even in places that use a grand jury for this kind of stuff, we're not invited to the process. The grand jury's a closed door proceeding.
Absolutely.
And so what's going to end up happening? I don't know. I just got to ask you all, and this is what I'm asking. Do I want to use my gun in that particular place? I maybe use it to point. I maybe use it to say, hey, back up, get away from me,
Right.
Get away from my mom. Because it's a lesser use of force, and that maybe gives me an opportunity, and is much more justifiable. So this is a much easier. We're over towards this side rather than this side. But if we don't do that and we go, well, I have a constitutional right, or I have my Second Amendment, whereas that may not be wrong, you're going to spend an awful lot of dollars on an attorney who's making that argument for you, right?
And even beyond that, you're 14, and even if you were 44, but imagine at 14 having to live with that. You've shot someone.
Yeah, I mean, the emotional, spiritual connotations,
Absolutely.
the social stuff. I mean, imagine that kid going to school the next week, and he's been all over the news, and people are like, you shot a guy in the face.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I sure did. And like, whoa, the amount of trauma counseling and those kinds of things.
And here's the bigger thing, what do you think mom is saying for allowing a 14-year-old to have a gun in his waistband?
Right.
Now that's a whole nother discussion, but again, to me it gets down to mom has some liability here as well.
Well, and again,
culpability, I should say.
Moral injury here,
Yes.
right? And the moral discussion of, did I do the right thing? Was my child in the right? Did I now put my child in a place where they used force in a way that they may not get prosecuted for that, especially as a 14-year-old, but they're going to have to live with it. So was I right to do that? So these are all things to think through. I mean, listen, my kids all hunted when they were younger. My kids were all around firearms. They all knew that. My son, James, at 15 was an NRA apprentice instructor. Yeah. So he was teaching firearms classes with me. Would that kid probably have been okay to carry in that circumstance?
Maybe.
I don't think it was wise though. Was it prudent? I don't know that I could pull that. Better choice here. Better choice. If somebody's going to carry a gun, it should be mom.
Absolutely. And if the son wanted to do something, take a less lethal weapon, whether it's pepper spray, whether it's a baseball bat, something along those lines. But again, it's always given that, in this case, that person the opportunity under those circumstances, even if you point the gun, back up. Give them that opportunity.
Yeah, probably had a moment to do that if you wanted to. And I get it, as 14 years old, you freaked out in the moment and those kinds of things, but man, this one's tough. I at the end of the day, I hope they don't charge this kid.
I hope they don't, especially based upon the crime that the perpetrator did. But I hope they don't charge mom either.
I hope they don't charge mom.
Yeah.
I hope that's not, I hope at the end of days they go, the prosecutor is smart and goes, nah, we're not going to do that. But I mean, or the prosecutor says, hey, before the judge, we're going to enter in a diversionary program. This child's going to take a couple of 100 safety classes and a bunch of trauma counseling. And then when that happens, they're going to keep their nose clean until they're 18, and then we're done with this.
That would be great.
I think that would be the right way to go. So I would strongly encourage you, if you're going to let your children have access to firearms, whether that is in the home or the place of business, okay, fine. Make sure, number one, they've got some training on when they can use it. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with kids, with teenagers protecting their home with deadly force if they need to. But some training on when they should use that and on how to do that effectively is important. I think this is a really tough one. I know folks are going to ask as well, Terry. I know that on Firearms Legal Protection's family plan, that children under 18 years old on a family plan are covered for defensive uses of force.
Yes.
And does that extend the castle into a place of business?
It's wherever they are. So if it's at school, if it's at a baseball game, wherever you are, it's no different than the parent themselves being protected. So yes.
So another good reason to have Firearms Legal Protection. So that covers, again, minor children in your home on the family plan. So make sure that you know what you're looking at and all those things. And we love FLP's coverage. So Terry, man, this one's crazy, but I appreciate the knowledge.
Thank you.